14 missiles, 1 destroyer, 40 minutes that could have redefined the Pacific. North Korea's sudden blitz wasn't a bluff. It was coordinated deception built on satellite targeting, concealed launchers, and even a submarine strike. But even as the USS John Finn fought for survival, stealth F-35s were already inbound, preparing to turn the tide. The big twist here? The battle may have ended on the surface, but the strategic question remained submerged. What really prevented all-out war? The missiles that hit, or the missiles never fired? Before we move on, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel and like the video. For 48 hours, a North Korean satellite orbited above the East Sea, transmitting coordinates that slipped into cliff shelters and forested valleys without anyone realizing. The signals were quiet, steady, and unremarkable to anyone not looking in the right place. But to crews inside mobile launch units and reinforced coastal batteries, it was the lifeline. Every data packet gave them exact placement for an ambush no search radar had caught. The technology was crude compared to American surveillance hardware, yet its true strength was invisibility, the absence of noise that makes something easy to overlook. By the time the vessels at sea finished another routine patrol, preparations on the ground had already been locked into place. North Korea had scattered 2 types of weapons across its eastern coast. Hwasong 12's heavier intermediate-range missiles were rolled into narrow shelters, cut into the base of cliffs. Painted doors blended with the rock around them, impossible to identify clearly through overhead photos. Shorter-range KN-23s, the workhorses of the arsenal, kept moving on transporter erector launchers. Those crews shifted from one forested patch to the next, sometimes every night, never long enough for satellite passes to catch them setting up. Forest canopies provided cover in daylight, and the mist rolling off the mountains near Hwasong and Hamhung blurred lines even further. Detection wasn't just difficult, it demanded a perfect moment of luck, which never came. The question for Allied forces became simple and impossible at the same time. How do you target equipment that refuses to stay still? Patrol aircraft scanned, but found no fixed array. Signals teams caught radio bursts, but they were brief and encrypted. Every time surveillance operators thought they noticed patterns, vehicles disappeared into the trees or down narrow coastal tunnels. What sensors missed was the most obvious change. A launcher coming to life, electronics humming, switching from march mode to strike mode. Those transitions lasted seconds, and nothing in the routine scanning rhythm managed to catch them. On the coastline itself, entire missile batteries looked like warehouses or empty parking lots. Trucks with hidden canisters shifted position by dawn and rolled away before dusk. Some carried covers painted like delivery vans, others like civilian buses. The deception was less about high technology and more about relentless repetition. Each new shift stretched the capacity of reconnaissance to maintain contact, extending the threat envelope far beyond radar nets positioned offshore. This meant that by the time a destroyer's passive sensors recorded movement, missiles could already be on their way. The guiding hand throughout this buildup wasn't a field commander in the woods, but the satellite relaying coordinates overhead. Its signals gave operators the kind of precision usually associated with advanced powers, except here, the edge came from avoidance. Where American systems jam or broadcast constantly, this craft whispered. That whisper turned into battlefield placement, feeding accuracy without the usual signatures that would have triggered alarms. Modern warfare is as much about what remains unseen as about raw firepower. And in this window, North Korea managed to blind some of the most advanced detection instruments afloat. While this unfolded on land, aboard USS John Finn, a destroyer built and crewed to handle missile threats, nothing beyond routine stood out. The morning briefing focused on haze limiting surface spotting. Reports from South Korean counterparts repeated the usual pattern of fishing vessels and minor radio chatter. Nobody on the bridge or inside the Combat Information Center realized that hidden among innocuous hillsides sat a lineup of battery crews with coordinates already fixed on them. The ship remained unaware that in the next hour, radar screens would suddenly bloom with incomprehensible streaks. The Alliance's trouble wasn't measured just in missile count. It was awareness. Before any warhead pierced airspace, the strike had already achieved its first goal, creating uncertainty. When a patrol designed to reassure allies operates blindly, confidence begins to slip. That doubt was as engineered as the missiles themselves. North Korea hadn't risked exposure, only to launch at random. The sequence was orchestrated to dislodge American credibility, to prove a fleet could be threatened even under the watch of the region's most capable naval sensors. These preparations were not scattered guesswork. They were the trigger mechanism, a mechanism built on stealthy coordinates, rolling trucks, and hidden doors. When the actual launches began, those mechanisms fired into full view, dragging a single ship into survival mode as 14 missiles cut arcs through the morning sky. At 7:41 a.m., 3 Hwasong 12 missile trails burned high above the horizon, while 6 KN-23s screamed in low arcs. Within moments, a calm sea patrol turned into combat as alarms pierced through steel decks. In the Combat Information Center aboard USS John Finn, watchstanders quickly identified the incoming tracks. A voice cut through with sharp clarity. "This is not a drill." Routines collapsed instantly. Officers and technicians worked the Aegis consoles as calculations for interception filled their screens. On deck, crews raced to missile cells as klaxons echoed. The destroyer had only seconds to react before the first wave closed distance. The KN-23s carried a special danger. Their erratic flight paths made them difficult for radar systems to predict, twisting in short bursts before settling back on course. Coupled with the far longer arcs of the Hwasong 12s, the mix forced operators to split attention between targets climbing into the upper reaches of the atmosphere and those skimming faster and lower toward the ship itself. Then came the third dimension. Sea-skimming cruise missiles, likely KH-35 variants, suddenly appeared on radar barely above the waves, fired from concealed coastal launchers. The combination turned the tactical display into chaos. Arcs stacked on top of tracks until decision chains had to be made within half a minute. Any misstep meant a direct hit. The John Finn's response unfolded fast. SM-6 interceptors fired upward, tearing into the sky to catch several Hwasong 12s in their mid-course phases. One exploded in a pale flash hundreds of kilometers away, metal fragments scattering harmlessly into the upper air. Sea Sparrows were queued next, linking onto incoming KH-35 signatures. Some found their marks and detonated close enough to disrupt warheads before impact. Still, a cruise missile broke through, diving hard at the destroyer's port side. The blast didn't strike cleanly, but landed near enough to rupture the hull, ripping open plating and forcing seawater into compartments. Even as compartments reported flooding, the phalanx CIWS spat rounds in a steady roar, hammering against KN-23s that darted in lower with unpredictable curves. The layered defense strategy bought survival, but not immunity. One near-miss bent bulkheads, showering compartments with twisted metal. Fires began to spread in 2 locations, leaving crew members ankle-deep in smoke and water, while still racing to man pumps and carry hoses. Orders collided with the unbroken patrol of radar screens, demanding updated intercepts. Within this scramble, another contact appeared, unexpected and unsettling. A submarine-borne Pukong-3 missile punched upward from the surf. This strike was not aimed at John Finn, but at the South Korean destroyer ROKS Sejong the Great. The Allied cruiser reacted quickly, launching 2 SM-3s that destroyed the missile before it came close. The sight underscored the depth of the ambush. Attacks were coordinated across land, sea, and undersea, forcing Allied crews into a battle with little margin for error. The John Finn sailed away scarred, compartments flooded and crew exhausted, but the strike ended without escalation. Damage was undeniable, yet the missiles stopped after 40 minutes. Why? One answer is deterrence by punishment. North Korea saw the quick destruction of its batteries and understood the cost of pressing further. Another answer is deterrence by denial. Missiles were intercepted, objectives denied, and momentum lost. Between Allied firepower and enemy restraint lies the real balance. Viewers must weigh which factor mattered more. Was it U.S. strength on display, or Pyongyang's limits in risk? 40 minutes nearly redrew the Pacific's balance forever.